I definitely consider myself an old soul. I tend to connect with stuff that is vintage. I was probably born 4 or 5 decades too late. It's not something you just hop in, turn a key, and in you're off. But once you are in the car, you strap in, you click that steering wheel into place, you're rewarded with just this otherworldly driving experience. So this is one of 5 Porsche 906 race cars that was built specifically for the movie Ford v Ferrari. It actually played 2 different cars in the film, even though it was the same car. It was the number 15 blue and gray car for the Daytona race, and it also played the yellow and white number 32 car for the Le Mans race that you actually see at the end of the film. Like so many other people, I found myself in the theater last year just completely mesmerized by the film Ford v Ferrari. Right there on the big screen was the golden age of road racing being replayed in high definition on a 60-foot screen. And for 2.5 hours, I was transported to an era in motorsports I've only ever been able to dream about visiting. Through the internet and social media, I've since been able to connect with a lot of the folks who worked on the film. Guys like art directors, picture car people, stunt drivers. It was pretty evident after getting to know a lot of these guys that they were just as passionate about that era of racing as I am. Everything was shot with real cars and real drivers, and I think that's a lot of what made the film so pure. The Carrera 6 was a really important step in the evolution of the Ferdinand Piëch racing program of the late 60s. It was an evolution that would eventually culminate in the highly successful Porsche 917. Around 65 total 906s were built in 1966, and it kind of makes them a rare sight nowadays. It was the last of the street-legal prototype race cars that Porsche made, so it still had working turn signals and wipers. You could drive it on the street even though it was basically a race car. This car in particular was built to portray the original chassis number 906017 Carrera 6 prototype. That car actually competed and won its class in the 1966 Daytona 24 Continental Endurance race. It was driven by Hans Hermann and Herbert Linge, and it finished first in the 2-liter prototype class and actually finished 6th overall, which in itself is a pretty remarkable feat, given how much more displacement the cars like the Ford GT40s had over the Carrera 6. Probably one of the more surprising things that I learned in my research of the original car was that it only competed in the one race here in the US. After that, it was used as a test mule for the Targa Florio. It sustained major frame damage when it hit a sheep of all things on a country road, and sadly the car was deemed a write-off, and it was broken down for parts. Curiously enough, it was only just recently restored within the last decade from basically all the surviving pieces, and it now resides in a private collection in Europe. As collectability and values of vintage race cars climb exponentially, the likelihood of experiencing something like that becomes less and less attainable to the average car enthusiast. Real Carrera 6s command $2 to $3 million nowadays. But if I can get 80 or 90% of that visceral 1960s experience from this film car, I'd call it a win. I'm generally pretty active on social media, especially Instagram. I love connecting with some of the younger fans who follow me just for this car, and it's fun to interact with them. Recently, I had a younger fan, one such fan, that reached out to me on Instagram, and he actually had built a replica of this car out of little bits of cardboard and scotch tape and bendy straws. And I was completely blown away by his passion for this car and his enthusiasm to go to the trouble to build a replica of it out of cardboard. I just thought that was so cool. I was really moved by that. I feel like companies out there like Haggerty are really doing a great job crafting programs that raise awareness and help build that enthusiasm for the younger generation of car lovers. They have programs like teaching kids how to drive a manual gearbox. They have open house events where kids can experience everything from a Model T to a muscle car. It's a neat thing to be involved with and to see these kids really connecting with a car that was born, generations before they were. As long as we're there to educate, I feel like there's always going to be a younger generation there that's eager to learn. Most of the heroes that I look up to now are either dead or in their 80s or 90s. Hans Hermann, Herbert Linge, Vic Elford. It was just a different generation back then. They strapped into cars that required every ounce of skill and energy a driver had, and then some. As a car guy, I think everybody kind of has in the back of their mind that we can't take these things with us when we pass away. In that respect, I feel like cars are kind of timeless. As long as you have a good custodian, someone that can take care of it, maintain it mechanically, a car can really outlast all of us. And that way, it's sort of a time machine. Cars are the one link I still have left to that generation. I sit behind the wheel, I close my eyes, and I'm right there in pit row at Daytona or Le Mans. And suddenly, it's 1966 all over again.